Hello, this is a review of the Kingston 128GB solid state disk drive. Now basically what you get is here, it's a clamshell package with the disk inside. Now it is a SATA 3 6GB per second solid state drive, and it gives you the read-write specs right on the package here. Now they sell different versions of this. This is the drive itself in this package here, but they sell one that also includes some migration software. So if you want help migrating from an existing hard disk drive to this solid state drive and don't want to be left to your own devices, they do have different versions out there that can lend you a helping hand if you want more help with that. They also sell that kit separately as well if you want to buy it in addition to this drive here. Now personally, I like another third-party software called Apricorn Easy Upgrade, which I'll link to separately in my review. But specifically about this, keep in mind that they have different versions, some that they do include their own endorsed set of instructions and software to do that. And opened up, this is what you get, and I thought this was really cool. First of all, what it basically comes with is you have the drive here, but they give you this extra piece that you see here. So basically this is a 7mm thickness drive, which is thinner than any of the other solid state drives that I have. So I have an Intel 120GB solid state drive, it's a 510 series, and I also have a SanDisk 120GB solid state drive, and this is definitely thinner than either of those two. So basically if you have a computer that can't handle the thickness, the extra thin drive of a 7mm, they give you this little extra thing that you can add on to make it thicker. I thought that was really cool that they give you that. I thought it was cool that it was this thin, but then they give you the kit so in case your computer needed some help. They do give you some instructions. Honestly, you know, these are your really basic pictogram instructions. The Getting Started guide just talks about having that, and then you have these instructions here. Now again, this is something that if you're just not familiar with how to insert inside of a computer, they're really generic basic instructions of dealing with inserting a drive inside of a computer. Usually you're going to want to follow your actual manufacturer instructions if you're not familiar with working with disk drives inside your computer. Where you're really going to spend most of your time is dealing with migrating to this drive if you have existing data that you want to migrate. So that's a whole different topic. Basically, if you're really going to talk about getting help migration, go with the other kit that they offer that should give you better help. But if you want to be left to your own devices, you know, you have your usual backup and restore. You know, make a backup of your computer using the normal backup processes and restore. But there's some help on the internet. But basically, I found when left to my own devices, I had a whole lot of difficulty migrating from a larger hard disk drive that I tried to shrink down to a smaller solid state drive. And I had a lot of success with a third-party software, the Apricorn Easy SATA, which I'll talk about separately. So this review isn't really talking about that in particular. Let's focus on the drive. So out of the box, I thought it was really cool, some of the aspects we see. For my Lenovo ThinkPad, I had to put it in this little hard drive cage that we see here. It's for the sole purpose of being able to slide it into a side port for the hard drive bay on these laptops. Slides in pretty easily, but basically you just take the existing drive cage that the hard disk drive was in, popped off a few screws from around that are on the 4 screws that are on any drive that we see there. So just unscrew these from the existing drives, pop the little metal cage off the other one and put the solid state drive in. And you'll notice that I definitely need to use the spacer. So you see that I have the spacers I put on top here, and that's because without the spacer it is not thick enough, of course, without it. So I definitely had to add the spacer in my case. And one thing to note though is with the spacer put in, it is actually a little bit thicker than the existing hard disk drive, and you can rather see it on the corner. You see how the drive protrudes just a little bit, or I mean the spacer that is, protrudes a little bit above that metal ridge where the other hard disk drive didn't. It's about a ½ millimeter or maybe a millimeter. It makes it a little bit tighter when sliding it into the hole with the rubber rails, because these bulge just a little bit right here like this when you put it on. It really wasn't a problem. It still slid in just fine, as I just shown you a moment earlier. Now that the solid state drive is installed, let's get a look at boot time. Now what I have set up here is a little kitchen timer to gauge the performance from the time I enter in my hard disk password. So let's get it started on 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we're off and running. It should take approximately 20 seconds. Now, I've seen improvements in boot times on every solid state drive that I've tried. Now this is the Kingston drive here, and we'll get a sense in about a moment. So let's get ready. And we're up. So to the time that you can actually get to logon, now of course you get more beyond logon, that you're going to have more things loading in the background, but again you're going to see a similar improvement from the time you log on. And so looking with starting at a minute, I have 20 seconds gone, so it took 20 seconds to boot to the logon screen, which is for me significantly faster than it was before on the hard disk drive before. Now one thing to remember is that any antivirus software or security suite that you've installed is going to make a noticeable slowdown in boot time. There's websites out there dedicated to comparing all the major vendors of different ones out there. Now this happens to be Symantec running in the background here, and you saw the boot time on this system, which happens to be a slightly older Lenovo T60P running an Intel Core 2 dual processor and 2 gigs of memory. Now, so it took 20 seconds on this hardware with a solid state drive. I've seen similar improvements from any solid state drive on multiple computers that I've had, and I've gotten even faster on an i7 quad-core processor with an even higher end Intel solid state drive. So the proof is what you see. It took 20 seconds to get to the logon screen. You can extrapolate where you can go from there. Of course, your experiences will vary based on what security suite you have and what else it's going to be loading in the background on your particular system. Now with a solid state drive, of course, applications tend to open a lot faster. So I have Internet Explorer at the bottom here. Watch. Click. Poof. Comes right on up. Now honestly, Internet Explorer tends to open fast on almost any computer nowadays, as long as it's up to speed. But let's try Firefox. This is the one that on this computer had been taking forever before. So click. And in about 1 second it comes on up too. So I'm very happy with how fast things are loading here. I think it's very good considering it is a slightly older Lenovo T60P laptop. So I think the drive does very good, performs as you'd expect from a solid state drive. For me, the verdict is this: it works, it's a competent solid state drive, it has all the characteristics that you expect out of a solid state drive, and it just works, right? So that's what you expect. Does it do the job? And lastly, it is faster than my existing hard disk drive that I had in the computer and has shown a noticeable improvement in speed. Now, I don't believe it is necessarily sped up as fast as some of the high-end, more costly solid-state drives out there, but for the price and the value, it does its job. And so I'm happy with mine. So this is my Lenovo T60P laptop. It's a slightly older laptop that I've had things running on here forever, and it's been progressively getting slower and slower and slower. So that is ridiculously awful to run at this point in time. So when things get that bad, you can't just migrate and clone the data from the existing hard drive to the new one, because then you have more than just a hardware problem at that point. You probably have a whole bunch of software things going on in the background that are really slowing down the system. So that's what I did. Is it was time to re-image the drive from scratch. So when I put in the Kingston solid state drive, I just installed Windows 7 again from scratch on this system, and things have been working flawlessly since. So keep that in mind, that if things are okay, you can go ahead through a migration scenario with the existing, try to migrate the operating system over. But otherwise, if things are really bad, it's probably time to re-image as well.